Welcome to the show. I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Maggie.
And this is Friends on Fire.
We are on a mission to get friends to talk about money. Hey, Mike.
Hi.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Before we jump into today's show, I got an exciting announcement to make. I'm excited to announce that we have launched a Facebook discussion group for Friends on Fire. And if anyone's interested in joining, we would love to have you join. This is for anyone that wants to get into more in-depth discussions and ask questions, tee up topics on money, and Mike and I will answer your questions. The whole group will answer your questions and share thoughts and opinions on any topics. And it's been great so far. We've got a small group in there, but we've been having some really great and meaningful discussions so far, and we hope to grow the people involved in it. So if you're interested in joining, you can send us a message through Facebook from our Friends on Fire page, or you can send us a message through Instagram and we'll get you the information on how to join.
So we've been doing this for a few weeks. It's like a test period, and it's been really fun and surprisingly enjoyable and informative. And in case you were wondering what Maggie's written answers look like compared to her long verbal answers, they're exactly the same.
Yeah,
right? They're about the same.
It's like long prose with no breathing in between. Yeah.
Right. Whereas mine are like, don't do it, or great idea.
Yeah. I'm like, let me tell you my life story, and then don't do it.
All right, so we have a very exciting episode today, one that is relevant for most people.
College. We're going to talk about college.
Yeah. I had a great time in college.
Yeah, I had a great time too. Is that what we're talking about?
I thought we were going to be talking about our experiences in college.
A great thing that social media did not exist when we were both in college.
Yeah, okay. Facebook started my senior year in college, and I had to have a university address in order to sign up.
Oh, I remember because it started, just for colleges. It's dating us to some people. They're like, "What? You grew up without Facebook?"
Well, didn't we give our ages like at the beginning?
Yeah, we did,
and almost every episode?
I'll be 40 this year.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm 37.
Basically like dinosaurs. So yeah, let's talk about college. Let's start this off with a question we got from a listener about college.
Hi, I have 2 young boys and we've started thinking about college. So was curious what advice you guys have about saving up for college. Is it better to save over time? Do we do a lot up front? Would love to hear your perspective on that. Thanks so much. Love the show.
I like that she wrapped that up with love the show.
Yeah, any positive feedback.
Yeah,
we love that's your favorite part of the question.
Keeps us going. That's a great question. Thank you for sharing it, and thanks for the feedback also. We're going to get into this specific question in a lot more, and so I think it makes sense to kind of do it in order as we get through things, but we will definitely address this question before the end of the show.
To start, let's give a little bit of context about our own college experience.
Yeah, sounds good.
You want to go first?
My college experience was, I went to an in-state school. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I was going to go out of state because I wanted to be an architect. And I actually paid a deposit and was like going to do it. At the last minute, I didn't want to incur a bunch of student loans. I think I started kind of freaking out of like, do I even want to be an architect? I just think I do. And do I want to incur loans to go out of state? So I decided at the last minute to the University of Georgia, which I got a full scholarship to because of a Georgia lottery program here. So you just had to have like decent grades and it was fully paid for. And so I just had to pay for room and board essentially. And my parents had saved $10,000 for our college, about the same for me and my brother. So it wasn't like a massive amount of money to pay for everything over 4 years, but it was a really nice sort of chunk of change for me at the time. They kind of gave it to me and were like, this is your $10,000 for college, like make it last. And so that helped with a lot of my room and board over the years. I worked multiple jobs throughout college. So I worked part-time my entire 4 years during college, and I graduated with about $5,000 to $10,000 in student loans. So between what I was able to work, some money my parents would give me on a monthly basis to help with living expenses, but not fully cover them. And then that $10,000 I had to start. And then the fact that I wasn't paying for tuition because I chose to stay at an in-state school. That was really kind of how I financially was from an undergrad standpoint.
I'm now wishing that I had gone first because my answer is going to sound much more elitist and obnoxious. So I'm from St. Louis originally and had made the decision very early on that I was going to go out of state for college. And my parents had saved up a lot of money and had given it all to me and said,
what's a lot of money?
Like a few $100,000.
Oh, wow.
And so they said,
my 10,000's looking kind of.
Right, which is why I said this is going to sound elitist and obnoxious.
I was super excited to get $10,000 at the time.
So they said, this is yours. You can go spend it. If you find a cheaper way to do it, it's yours. If not, If it's not enough, you have to cover it. I wasn't really thinking about the financial aspect of it. My parents were very supportive of me going and finding the best school that was the best fit for me. And so I settled on the University of Michigan, which was an out-of-state school, very expensive, but also a great school and a great experience. And I'm glad I went there. I would not do it any differently if I had to redo it. However, I don't remember myself being very, very mindful of the finances. My parents were encouraging me to apply for scholarships and grants everywhere I could, just to make sure I was doing the due diligence, but they never put pressure on me to make a decision based on money. They wanted me to go have the best experience possible. It helped that they both went to Michigan themselves, and so
I didn't know that.
They had a connection to that school and they knew it would be good. And so maybe that's one of the reasons they didn't put a lot of pressure on me. What I did do was I was very aggressive in taking as many credits as possible within my normal workload. So I actually graduated in 3.5 years. So I saved a full semester of tuition, which I was able to keep.
And room and board.
Well, I was still living there,
sorry.
having a great time that last
out.
semester. We have very different background stories on this, and I didn't work at any point in my 4 years at college. So I did do some video production, but I wasn't doing it for the money. I didn't need any, the money I was earning to pay for tuition. I was doing it for work experience. Essentially, I was not working like you were. So we've had like very different experiences in college, but we've also landed on kind of a similar place in our attitude towards it.
Yeah.
And so that's what, it will be interesting to discuss.
Yeah, it's funny. It is funny. So much of, and you'll hear it as it comes out with some of our individual views on college savings and spending and planning for it. But so much of it is impacted and influenced by kind of how you were raised and what your parents did with you that I think is interesting. The other thing I'd add is I did all that to not have a lot of debt and made a lot of decisions that were financial related tied to my undergrad setup. And then a few years into working, I decided to get my MBA part-time at Emory in Atlanta. And it was like $90,000. And I luckily I was working, so I was able to pay it off in a couple of years, but it was a ridiculous amount of money. So we can get grad school is a whole nother topic.
Yeah. I think the first question we have to discuss is college worth it to begin with? From my perspective, the question is really, do you need to go to college to be happy? And the answer is no. However, it does help.
Yeah. There's a lot of very successful people that have not gone to college. There's a big trend towards like unschooling and like what's Seth Godin's whole thing of Seth Godin has launched this whole thing about like teaching you the things you really need to know. We'll put a link in the show notes to it, but that you would never learn in college anyways. And that's way more important than what you do learn in college. But it's tough because I have 3 kids, and as much as I can point to just as many people in life and around me who are successful without college, you better believe I'm going to be encouraging all of my kids to go to college because good or bad, like societal norms, like it's still something that gives you, a big competitive advantage to be able to succeed in life and just be able to get jobs that you otherwise couldn't get without it.
Right. It's a formative time. It's a time when you have a lot of fun. You learn how to be productive. You learn how to learn new skills. And so I do think it is worth it. It's certainly not a requirement to be happy, but it certainly helps you be happier in life, I believe, because it prepares you better for the type of jobs that are a little bit harder to get.
Yeah. And I think when we say is college worth it, we're also talking about what type of school is worth it and what type of investment is worth it. And I think the difference in Mike and I's stories is really telling in that of like you were handed a large amount of money. And so you felt like you could go to an out-of-state school and it wasn't a burden on you. You weren't going to walk out of there with, $100,000 plus in student loans. But if you weren't handed that amount of money, I think it would have changed your view of going to an out-of-state school personally. Me as someone, I wasn't handed that large of a sum of money. And so I had to make a decision at 18 because I knew if I went to an out-of-state school, I was incurring the loans, right?
Right.
Not my parents. And so I made a decision and was like, do I want to incur $100,000 in debt? And at the time, I'm lucky I made a good decision because it's tough for an 18-year-old to make that decision. But I think it's a good example. And you made this point earlier, Mike. We kind of ended up at the same point in life. And whether you went to an in-state or out-of-state school is not going to have a big impact on your success in life, I would say. That is my opinion, at least.
And when it comes to picking, a highly ranked school versus a mid-ranked or unranked school. I think this is where a lot of people's decision making goes. And it's not so much about the finances. They want to go to as good of a school as possible. And kind of like what we were saying where, like you don't have to go to school, college to be happy. You don't have to go to the highest ranked college in order to be successful. However, the higher ranked school, the better the university that you go to, you're going to be with better students and better professors. You will have a more robust and accomplished network of people to lean on when you're looking for jobs or later on in your career. So there is certainly benefit to going to as good of a school as possible, but it does not mean that if you go to Princeton, you're going to be a success. And it also doesn't mean if you go to Georgia, you won't be a success. I'm just kidding. Georgia's a great school.
But I think it's actually a great point. And I could make a lot of comparisons to the type of car you drive and a bunch of other things. Like it looks good on paper to have gone like in your resume and when you're early interviewing in your career and other things. But I guarantee you when you are 40 years old and 20 years into your career in corporate America, in entrepreneurship, whatever you're doing, nobody knows or remembers what college you went to and whether you went to a community college or whether you went to Harvard or whether you went to the University of Georgia, whatever it is. Nobody knows the difference except until you do some like team event. Everyone's like, wear your college shirt. And then everybody, but that's more about football than where your education came from.
Right. It's about what you can do in your job.
Yes. Our point here is figure out what makes sense for you financially. I don't believe it's worth a kid or a parent getting into ridiculous debt for some school that looks better on paper. That is my opinion on college.
And also figure out what's better for your kid. If your kid needs more attention that they can get from a smaller private school, then maybe that's the best place for them. And maybe if they are very much interested in the formative time that college provides, maybe going to a larger state school with a great football team is better for them. So you have to weigh both the financials and also what's better for your child.
Yeah, I think that what's better for your child and the reality of the uniqueness of your situation to what makes sense for your decisions around college is so important. Because I even fast forward to, 10 years when I'm going to be putting my kids through college. I can't yet predict what kind of students they're going to be and what kind of people they're going to grow into, right? I see little signs of it. You see who's kind of naturally more responsible and different things. But so much will evolve and come to light over the next 5-10 years that will start to show me. And for me, a lot of those behaviors and activities will guide the decisions and the investments that I'm willing to make. I'm willing to fund more to someone who is working hard and is doing good than I am to someone who is screwing around and like not trying and not putting all their energy into something. Like I'm not going to bankroll a private school education for college for a child that is screwing around. I don't know a better way to say it. It's not happening on my dime.
You make a great point. They need to have some accountability and skin in the game.
Yeah. Like your parents would have taken that money back if you were not a diligent student and good kid. Right.
Both my sister and I were pretty good decision makers, good students, and they knew that they could count on us to make the right decision.
Yeah. And my parents wouldn't have handed $10,000 over to me if I was going to go like blow it my first semester. They knew that I wouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just an important point to make, that it is different for every kid. There are some kids you can hand a big chunk of money to and they're going to be able to deal with it. There's some kids where you're going to need to dole it out slowly over time, and that's okay. Right? That's your decision as the parent to make.
So we talked about the considerations of how to choose schools and how to consider paying for it. But like, what are the different ways that you really can come up with the money to go cover the costs? One thing that, I think we hear a lot about in the news is that college costs keep rising. It's going to cost you $10 million to send your kid to college in 2050 and stuff like that. I think that's a lot of scare tactics. That's certainly the way that kind of the full published rate of tuition is trending. But that's not in reality how tuition works. There are a lot of ways that college gets paid for. There's scholarships, for example.
Yeah, and there's even scholarships tied to being in state specifically. So a lot of schools, like the state of Georgia still has a program, and it's changed names since I used it. It used to be called HOPE. It's funded by the Georgia Lottery. I think it's now called like the Zell Miller Scholarship or something. Based on you having the right level of grades, it funds in-state tuition. And a lot of states have programs like that now. And so, again, that's something that could push you more towards an in-state school versus an out-of-state school. And then there's tons of other types of scholarships, from need-based to certain sports to certain, activities and artistic talents and things like that.
You can also get credits that apply towards the college you choose through community college or through AP classes.
Yeah,
so
this is a huge trend. I mean, I know people with high school age kids and their kids are graduating high school. They've already got a whole year's worth of college credits. That's just
amazing.
Saved you, depending on where your kids go to school, from
50 grand.
10 to 50 grand, right? So that's a huge new thing that was not nearly as prevalent when we were in high school. Like, I know we had AP classes, but like there were not people. I don't think it was as common as it is now.
And along those lines, you should be challenging the preconceived notion that college is a 4-year, 8-semester thing. You can really crunch your credits like I did and finish a little bit early. You can take community college classes and AP credits and bring that down. There are ways just to shorten the amount of time you're in college to lower those costs. You can also work during school. If you're going to a university town, like the whole place is set up to employ students for short periods of time. So there's lots of places that you can have jobs that work around college student schedules to help cover some of your tuition.
Yeah, I'd say on the job front too, a lot of my jobs throughout college, I had a mix of jobs that were to make money, and that's why I had the job. And then I had a lot of jobs, like I worked at our career center. I had some different internships, and those jobs actually really helped me better set up to get a job when I got out of college. So it wasn't just about the money too. A lot of it was about the work experience, which helped me my first year getting out of school to get a job.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we can do a whole follow-up episode on, working as a kid or a college kid and how you should manage that or encourage your child to do so. Working at any job gives you exceptional experience and learnings about life. It makes you a better member of society. And so even though you may make the decision not to have a job, working during college has some benefits in addition to just getting a paycheck.
Yeah, agreed.
And then lastly, there's loans. This is something that has to be managed carefully, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. If the difference between you going to an exceptional school and a mediocre school is a reasonable amount of debt and you've exhausted all these other avenues, then managing that well is not a bad thing. You pick up that debt, you manage it responsibly, you pay it off.
Yeah, I also think there's a consideration around the sort of debt to income ratio of what you plan on doing outside of school. And so if you plan on, no offense to teachers, because we need more awesome teachers, but like if you plan on being a teacher right out of school, incurring $200,000 in debt doesn't feel like a good idea. If you plan on being a doctor or a pharmacist or something where you're going to have a higher and consistent income right away, it might be a little bit more palatable to incur a certain amount of debt. So I think just thinking about that is important also as you consider how much debt you or your kids are willing to go into.
The return on investment calculation is important based on what you think your future earnings are going to be. All right, so how do you plan for all of this?
I don't know. I was hoping you were going to answer that part.
Well, I think the first key is that you have to A, plan for it.
Yeah, so we plan for it.
And B, plan super early. Plan for it before you actually have kids.
Or just maybe once you have kids.
Well, if you are thinking about having kids, you should be aware you're going to have to pay for daycare. You're going to have to pay for medical bills.
True.
You will have to pay for college. So you shouldn't be surprised when your kid is 15 that all of a sudden you have college expense to think about. Think about it before you have kids.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing about planning for it early also are just the financial benefits too. The earlier you start saving, the longer you have to amass compound interest and earnings on that money, and the more that you're going to have at the end. So the more you save up front, the better.
And the primary vehicle for this is going to be the 529 account, which is going to let you make contributions on a child's behalf, and those contributions will be invested and grow tax-free.
Okay, let's talk more about 529 plans. So I think everyone who has kids should start one as soon as your child is born.
The way 529 accounts work is that each state will have its own 529 run plan. You don't have to sign up for your state's plan. You can sign up for any state's plan, but all states offer them so that you can get a state income tax deduction. So what that means is that if you contribute $1,000 to a 529, your state income tax will be on a amount that is $1,000 less. So if you pay...
They'll let you reduce your taxable income by $1,000.
So in Georgia, 6% state income tax, you contribute $1,000, you will save $60 on state income tax. Now, if you sign up for another state's plan, you don't get the state income tax deduction.
And I mean, some people would sign up for another state's plan, not because they're like, ooh, I really want a Nevada plan. Well, you will, which we'll talk about. But some people just go to whoever their brokerage accounts are with. And they're like, well, I use Fidelity, so I signed up for their 529. I don't even know what state it's through. But I think the point is, it doesn't necessarily matter what state your plan is through. There's people like Mike who might choose a state to really optimize their fees and their performance.
Right. All these plans are run differently. They have different fees. They have different investment choices. And so if you go look up 529 performance rankings online, you're going to get a whole list of people doing the analysis telling you which one's better. I picked the Nevada plan because it had a great history and reviews online. I opted to therefore not take advantage of the state income tax deduction from doing a Georgia plan because I didn't think that the performance of the Georgia plan was worth that deduction.
I did both, actually. I have a Georgia plan, so I get my state tax deduction. And I have a second one that I actually just opened up because it was easy through Wealthfront, and it happens to also be through Nevada. But I just got lucky on the fact that apparently it was with a high-ranked one.
You had good intuition. But regardless of the income tax deduction benefits, the most impactful thing you can do is contribute a lot of money as early as possible. Because the benefit of a 529 is that it grows tax-free. So you put $10,000 into it. If over time that grows to be $100,000 and you use that for qualified educational expenses like college tuition, you don't pay any income tax on the $90,000 that you've grown by. This is huge. But if you contribute money when they're 17 and then you spend it when they're 18, you might only make a few dollars and the benefit's not there.
I think that's super important. The other thing that I think is worth noting is the state that you choose has nothing to do with how you spend the money, right? Like, it's not like when you do it. I assume people know this, but I never know. So I just want to clarify. It's not like when you choose Nevada's plan, you can only use it for colleges in Nevada, right? It's literally just happens to be the state that investment setup is run through and organized by, because they're set up at a state level versus a federal level in the United States.
And the way 529s work technically is that you're the owner of the account. It's listed as your asset, but then you have a beneficiary, which is going to be one child. You can change the child. If you are worried about over contributing, you could create one 529 account, which is what I did. And then if one child doesn't need it or doesn't need as much of it, I'll transfer it to the other child.
You're going to actually wait and transfer it when they get older.
Right.
Versus, multiple accounts. That's interesting. Versus we have a different account set up for each of our children. I think that's one thing that always makes me feel better too, because I am sometimes a little bit conservative about how much I will put into a 529, because I don't want actually too much money in college savings, because, what if my child has a lot of scholarships, and what if they just don't end up needing that amount of money? So one thing that always makes me feel better is there are actually other things you can do with your 529 plan money, which is give it to other children. You can use it on your own education expenses if you were to, do continuing education at an older age.
You could also pay the 10% penalty and the income tax on the earnings and just take it out.
Use it on anything.
It's just like a 401k where your money isn't permanently locked away only to be used. It's not ideal.
Yeah,
but
there's just some penalties.
It's still yours. But to go back and just reinforce the main point is that in order to save effectively for college, you have to be doing it early and you have to be doing a lot of it. You can contribute $15,000 per year per parent and you won't pay any gift tax. It is better to contribute a lot of money early on in your kid's life and not do it ever again than it is to contribute a little bit over time.
Yeah, this is one thing that when Mike and I started having conversations about money and personal finance, one thing that I did right away was I was like, well, I don't know why I'm kind of just like putting in a small amount each month just because that feels normal and what I should do when I have money sitting in savings that I could just pre-fund, and it will now have much longer to grow over time tax-free. For my daughter, I have 2 stepdaughters and 1 daughter. So for my daughter, I pre-funded her account essentially and put in like all the money I plan to save over the next 10 years. I just went ahead and put in now. Because there's a lot of financial benefits to doing that. And for my stepdaughters, I am not their primary parent. They have a father and a mother. I think of myself as like a generous aunt, right? Like I can put money into their accounts whenever I want to. I often do on like birthdays, holidays, and big events. And I let the kids know, like, hey, I'm going to put money into your college fund instead of this because it's important for us to save for college. I think it's just interesting to kind of think through different approaches. And again, the point we're always trying to make, which is there's value in having discussions about money with your friends and family. College is definitely something where I adjusted my approach after having talked to Mike and others about it. And my husband did the same, right?
That's great. There's been a lot of information in this episode. So let's try to recap this with our 3 key points.
Is it the University of Michigan is better than the University of Georgia?
We will do our 4 key points then. I thought that went without saying.
There's a lot of people at work that went to the University of Michigan. So there's always like a lot of...
There's a lot more that went to the University of Georgia.
Yeah. I don't know, but somehow the Michigan stands out because it's so far away, yet there's a lot of them.
Let me just clarify something. So
there's like 4 of you.
I really want to avoid sounding elitist and obnoxious in this episode. Georgia's a great school. You are much more successful in your career than I am. You make more money. You are higher up in the company. And so this is a proof point that where you go to college does not dictate where you end up in your professional life.
That's a fair point. That's why I was saying earlier, nobody at school, other than around like football rivalries and like fun stuff like that, nobody cares.
Your football team's even better than mine now.
Yeah.
I
honestly didn't even know that. So,
yeah.
I don't really follow college sports. Okay, back to our top 3, which I don't think we've gotten into yet. Top 3 takeaways from this episode. Number 1, yes, we do believe college is worth it.
And number 2, you need to make sure that the situation is worth it for your specific child. So you need to balance the quality of the education, the rank of the school, the cost of that school, and the cultural fit and what they're going to find and the resources that they'll have there. College is worth it in general. Make sure you find one that is the most worth it for your child.
So number 3, don't saddle your kids with debt. It doesn't mean that you have to pay for college for your kids. If you can't or don't want to, or whatever the reasoning is, pay for your kids to go to college and fully fund it, I think the main thing is you owe it to them to educate them about their options and make sure that they go in eyes wide open, understanding that there are ways to go to college and not incur a bunch of debt.
All right, this was a fun episode, Maggie.
Yeah, I thought it was a great discussion. It made me kind of reminisce about my own college experience a bit also. And
I liked college.
Yeah, I'm getting excited for like thinking. I often think about like what type of college experience and how my kids will kind of continue to grow into what sort of people they'll be, what kind of colleges they want to go to based on that.
Do you think you're going to be the mom that kind of like pops into the dorms and wants to like hang out?
Especially because I'll be retired, so I'm be like, hey, yeah, you want to go to lunch? I'll pick you up after class. We can go get a brewski.
I'll be here for a week.
That's fine. I'll just sleep on your dorm room floor. No biggie. Let's jump to Mike's Minute on the Mic. This is where I ask Mike a question. He has 60 seconds to answer. And let's go.
All right.
So, Mike, this is a 2-part question.
Okay.
Were there any colleges you applied to that you did not get into?
I don't want to sound obnoxious and elitist, but no.
Okay. I thought that might be the answer. I don't know. I actually thought I was going to catch you and you'd be like, oh, I tried to get into Harvard, but they wouldn't take me. Okay.
This episode is not looking favorably for me. All right. Part 2.
Part 2. This is a layup for you.
Okay.
Did you play any sports in college?
Yes, I played lacrosse in college.
Was that an intramural team or like a...
No, it was a real team.
Oh, wow. Did you get a scholarship for that?
No, I did not get a scholarship.
But you walked on?
Yep. I actually turned down some scholarship money from different schools because I thought Michigan was a better fit for me. But important thing to keep in mind is not everybody gets a full scholarship. There's only a limited amount of scholarships. And so like most people just get a little bit of money from schools to go there. So I went to Michigan because I really loved the place. I thought it was a great education. And
did you know you'd be able to make the team?
Yeah, I mean, I was recruited there. I went into it knowing that I was going to make the team. Yeah,
okay, that's cool.
I just didn't get any money for it.
Must have been pretty good. When I grew up in the Southeast and lacrosse, which I think now some high schools down here have lacrosse. Nobody, my cousins up north all played lacrosse. Nobody in Atlanta played lacrosse when I was growing up here.
There's some good lacrosse here now.
Yeah, so Mike is actually a very accomplished lacrosse player. For those who didn't know that. And you still go back to Michigan every year to shoot like an annual video for them, right?
Yeah, I do a video. I stay involved with the team. It's a great hobby.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go Michigan lacrosse. What's
we
the
say
mascot?
go blue.
Go blue. Go blue.
Go blue.
I feel like I should say go dogs in exchange for that. Okay, thanks. That was a great discussion, and we'll just wrap this up. So as always, you can call us or leave us a text at 404-981-3370, and you can leave us a question, comment, or a tip, and we will play it on the air for you.
And please, please, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps other people find our show, and we appreciate your feedback.
You can also find us at friendsonfire.org if you want to check out the latest episodes or sign up for email alerts. Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye.